2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Guys!
In a row?
Welcome back to Nine Guys Dynasty Football. I am Jamie G, and I'm here at Magnum Mills with our Dynasty reactions from Week 4 of the 2025 NFL season. Mills, I know, I really do. I know you're an Eagles fan, but even you have to feel a little bad for Malik Neighbors, right? I mean, that just kind of sucks.
Oh, from League Neighbors, absolutely yes. I have like the big Grinch heart for that one, but Giants fans, it is the very small, very, very tiny Grinch heart. Yeah, and any player, man, you feel bad, especially when it just kind of happens like that in the moment. He's just kind of plants, he's going to go up, and you knew something was wrong immediately, and he started grabbing it, and it's always a horrible scene. It'll be tough for them to overcome. Congrats to them on getting the win anyways. So we'll see how it works out in the long term, but things will be looking up next week. No matter what, at least you'll hopefully get more points than you did from him this week. We'll be looking forward to that, and hopefully you are going to look forward to the next episode of Nine Guys Dynasty Football. Thank you for checking out our show. You can find our content wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Find us on social media at SeizeTheGapFF and on the web at SeizeTheGapFF.com. Very simple and easy to remember, just like the flaps, FLAPS. Follow, like, and please subscribe. If you had fun, please make sure to touch the thumb.
We're going through the Week 4 games, and we're going to start off with Seattle Seahawks, their big triumph over the Arizona Cardinals on Thursday Night Football. Mills, as a Marvin Harrison Jr. owner, how you feeling after that big fourth quarter performance by him?
It was very, very much needed. It was starting to get a little bit worried here. I had some offers. I don't have a ton of shares because you had to basically pick at the 101 to get him. No one who's had him has really been giving him up to anything short of, more or less the value that you paid for him with that high rookie draft pick. So I was starting to think like, man, there were a couple of those offers I could have taken. And then they turn it on at the end, but still lose the game. And that just feels like so Cardinals. That just feels like what they've been for the last couple of years. I don't feel great. I have a couple of super flex teams where my primary two quarterbacks have been Joe Burrow and Kyler Murray, and those teams have generally been pretty good. But sometimes you forget what a roller coaster it is with Murray. He'll get to those highs sometimes. He's adding 50 yards and a touchdown and throwing for a couple of touchdowns and really putting up some numbers, and they look pretty good. Trey McBride's going, and you can kind of see it happening. And then there's times you just watch the games, and it reminds me a lot of watching Jalen Hurts, unfortunately. It just doesn't kind of happen sometimes. So I was happy to see it, happen for him a little bit there in the fourth quarter. I think you just kind of have to hold on. Again, I would probably be tempted to buy if someone was, looking to just check out here, but I don't think anybody is. Again, everyone who owned him is pretty highly invested at this point, so they're probably not going to give up on him. What'd you think about kind of the debut, as a starter here for Trey Benson? He's been our guy for a minute. He only had 8 carries, took him for 35 yards, did add 5 receptions only for 19 yards, but that's still really nice to see. DeMarcado was out there stealing a little bit of work, but he was a bit more involved in the passing game. So overall, after having held on to him for over a season, waiting for this moment, even though it wasn't a crazy debut, he didn't do, Kenneth Gainwell numbers, I was pretty happy with it. How did you feel about the big starting debut of Trey Benson here?
Yeah, I was too, Mills, and I think it's interesting because from an overall fantasy point perspective, it landed basically where I kind of thought it would, but it didn't get there how I thought it would, and I think that's the most encouraging thing. 8 carries, and for 35 yards, obviously that's not what we're hoping for there. Not a ton of red zone opportunities. Didn't find pay dirt, but the 5 receptions on 5 targets for 19 yards is extremely encouraging. And if he's going to get 13 to 15 opportunities per game, he's got to do a little bit more than that. But I was definitely encouraged for the upside here. Hopefully he can stay on the field on third down. Hopefully he can get more work, more opportunities in the red zone and punch one in. But overall, I was definitely excited.
The Cardinals are crying out for a third option in that passing game behind McBride and Marvin Harrison Jr., and they don't really have that pure kind of slot guy that does that other kind of short area stuff. So I certainly think there's an opening for him. So, if someone's coming by and I'm probably not selling unless they're kind of giving me a Godfather offer, you're welcome to try and pry him off somebody. But if they're like us and they've been waiting over a year for this moment, you're not going to find very many people, again, willing to give him up for much, outside of the proverbial Godfather offer. Sam Darnold is really tough to get a handle on. Again, he's not really a big thing in one quarterback leagues unless you're in a really deep league. But in Superflex, he's obviously someone that, is probably going to be in your lineup most weeks. I'm watching this game and I'm like, I know Murray is at rushing upside, but he's just kind of maddening. And I start, making these little hypothetical deals in my head. Would you trade, like, which side would you rather have? Sam Darnold in a first round pick again in Superflex or Kyler Murray?
Oh man, it's really tough because you love the rushing upside for Murray, but he's just never been able to really get you where you want. Darnold, it's not the weapons that man, this is tough, and that's the point. I guess I'm gonna go with Murray and go with the rushing upside.
I think it's still Murray because theoretically, if he puts a couple of really good games together, you might be able to get something more approaching, someone who's more like the quarterback 6 or 7 overall, where Darnold is who he is. Even if he has another really good year, no one's ever going to believe. As soon as he has one bad game, look at Daniel Jones. It doesn't take much to kind of blow all that goodwill that you worked so hard to build up. I think Darnold could be perfectly serviceable. I think he's probably going to be fine in a best ball situation. I'm no longer really worried about him potentially getting usurped by Jalen Milroe at some point this season or anything like that. So I think if you got him overall, but Kyler Murray is a guy just kind of quietly there. If he puts a couple of good games together, I'd at least maybe explore the market and kind of see what's up a little bit there. And I am still buying on the other rookies for the Seahawks. Elijah Rowe, the tight end, I've been getting a little bit more involved every week, and Torrey Horton failed to score this week. Only had one reception for 10 yards, but he had a touchdown. Darnold actually dropped it right in the bucket early in the game and he couldn't hold on. So if he would have caught that one, I think people would be a lot more excited, but that's kind of on the lower end. Still excited about those guys. Jamie G, two guys can't be really excited about right now are, and go over to the Dublin game. They're the tight ends. Big surprise. We're not excited about the tight ends. TJ Hawkinson is really struggling here. It doesn't look like the return of Jordan Addison is going to help him too much. He really feels like just kind of a touchdown dependent option right now. And then, dude, pour one out for Pat Fryermuth.
Ugh.
Running is the tight end 3 now, clearly behind both Jonnu Smith and Darnell Washington. This is a tough spot if you're a Fryermuth owner in a tight end premium league. He's still only 27. He's too good to really cut. But now you're not going to be able to get anything from him the rest of the season. I'm honestly hoping they trade him, but I don't know if they will. This just really, really sucks, right? Because I don't think Fryermuth has done anything wrong. It's just you get Arthur Smith, right?
Yeah, it's just he's caught up in the Arthur Smith offensive system, and it's been horrible. And we both on this very show, when Arthur Smith took that gig, said, "Ah, shit, man, I'm a little worried about Pat Fryermuth." We were worried about a lot with what Pittsburgh's offense might be with Arthur Smith, but with Pat Fryermuth here, it really sucks. And the thing is, the talent is there, and he can handle the workload. But now he's basically a roster clogger, and you're just kind of stuck. Let's hope the trade deadline, like you said, that would be the best case scenario for him. But I don't know, man. I don't see it happening, and I think you're gonna have to kind of live with it for the next, year or
Rest of
so.
the season, yeah, until
Rest for
we
this
kind of see
season
what
at least.
happens. Yeah. And I mean, that's kind of sucks because Johnny Smith's still a very, very fantastic athlete, especially for the position. And dude, Darnell Washington is awesome to watch. He is a mountain of a man. They're trying to talk him into moving to left tackle. He is that big of a dude, but he can catch the ball and move a little. So if you could just give one of these guys, like any three of those guys, if they were featured somewhere, I would be super interested. But you put them all in the same stew, it's like too many cooks, man. There's just too much, right? In a tight end position, it's almost impossible to have too much, and they somehow found a way.
It's like there's already potatoes in there. What are you doing adding rice?
And sweet potatoes.
Yeah, we don't need regular potatoes and sweet potatoes in the soup. All right, pick one. Pick one, people. Freaking Pittsburgh, man. I'll tell you.
Yeah, they don't I think they do more of a stew thing in Pittsburgh than a soup, but I'm not 100% sure on that. I'll have to get a case of Iron City and see what goes better. Dude, talk about former Eagle, man. Kenneth Gain very, very well. I was one of those people. I actually got up before the game time. I was good to go for the London game. I only have Jalen Warren in one lineup. I was so sure he was active, I didn't even check it. Absolutely killed me, dude. I had Gainwell on the bench, 19 carries, 99 yards, 2 touchdowns, 6 receptions, 35 yards on 6 targets. amazing, right? I mean, he looked at least as good as Jalen Warren. And you forget, coming out of college, Kenneth Gainwell, excuse me, was a pretty decent prospect. Like, it was kind of surprising he fell as far in the draft as he did. And the Eagles, at that point, he was a stash behind Miles Sanders. And then right when he was
Yeah.
going to get his chance, we signed Saquon Barkley. So he just kind of never really got the shot. He shined a couple of times in the preseason, in late season, in a couple of halves here and there, filling in for injury. So I've been really excited about him. I don't know that he's going to parlay this into some kind of, massive career outburst, from this point where he's like all of a sudden going to be a locked in starter somewhere, but he certainly should be owned in most leagues at this point. And I think if nothing else, he's probably earned the ability to be kind of like, a running back 3 or your second flex or something like that in a deeper league. I mean, you've seen him score before this. He's getting a little involved in the passing game. So I'm kind of excited for Kenneth Gainwell here. I don't want to go too much into it. It's probably easily going to be the best game of his, maybe his entire career from a fantasy standpoint. But it was really nice to see, and he looked good doing it too. I don't think it was just the numbers. There's not a lot of cheapies in there.
No, dude, it was dominant. I mean, he was busting off 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 every carry. He could Minnesota's defense, and that's very scary for Minnesota and their defense, but they could not stop him, and they knew it was coming there down the end, and they literally could not stop it. I really think like he's got like P Ryan upside. He's P Ryan but better. And if he finds himself in a good system on a good opportunity, I think there's value there. We'll see what happens the rest of the season, but it was awesome to see.
I'm just trying to imagine a world, where he got the Javonte Williams pillow deal in Dallas or something like that, that kind of situation. Who knows, going forward again, Jalen Warren, you don't think this will linger. The Steelers have a bye next week, but if Gainwell is out there, even in shallow formats, I think he should be rostered. They did go back to Caleb Johnson, 6 carries for 22 yards, no receptions on 1 target. Nice to see that he's not so far into the doghouse that they brought up like a practice squad guy over him. So at least he's got that going. So that's a small sliver of hope if you're an owner. And again, he's a guy I'm probably willing to vulture buy, but I'm not really going to give up, anything of real note for him, especially with Gainwell looking as good as he does. And we've been talking about it a little bit, but is this the moment if you're ever going to really try to move on from DK Metcalf? Once again, only 5 targets, but turn him into 5 receptions for a $126 and a touchdown. It's hard to see him getting a ton of volume here, so this is what he's going to have to do if he wants to put up big numbers, and I'm just not confident that he can do this on even a semi-consistent basis.
That's what's scary. There's just not going to be any consistency in that. And, you know, we've seen it, and it's not just even here too. We kind of seen the disappearing act in Seattle. So it's tough. And I just Mills, do you think? I guess my question to you is: after a performance like this, what is the trade market for him now? And is there one?
There probably is, I'm sure, in a 1 quarterback league, a good contending team who's confident that pick's going to be the 110, 111, 112, somewhere in that range would probably do it for him. So if I think that would be the case, I would want a sweetener on top of that. It's definitely got to be a team who's contending. Maybe a team trying to middle. Metcalf isn't incredibly old. I think he's 27, 28, right in that range. But I'm just not sure how well he's going to age. It's not like he's a very precise route runner that's going to really get it done on kind of like jump balls and back shoulder fades in the end zone. Given his size, you would think that, but he's never really been used in that fashion. I think you're going to have to get a little bit interesting if you want to move him. You maybe have to look for more of a package deal or for a player at a different position or something like that. Again, I would love to get it at first and a second. It all depends. I'd probably in a super flex league go ahead and check out for just about any first. 1 quarterback, I'd want a late first and something else. I would gladly probably take like a mid first. Like in a Metcalf trade, you got Neighbors out for the year. We'll circle back around to this in a minute, but I hadn't really thought about it with Metcalf. Like, if you're the Neighbors owner, you think you're a contender, would Metcalf and like what probably figures to be a late first be enough for you to trade the injured Neighbors?
Oh, no. I don't think so. I think I'm just gonna bite the bullet and hang on to Neighbors.
I don't think I would either, but those are probably, a spoiler alert. We'll get to that in a little bit, but the kind of offers I would be trying to make here, at least it doesn't hurt to just try to check it out and see if anybody, because Metcalf's got one of those dudes. He does have some real super fans out there. He's got some stands in the audience, so always kind of just
100%.
check around your league and see. And even the hardcore Steelers fans, there's also that subset. You do get those sometimes that'll pay a little bit extra for the Steelers players. So just shop around. welcome to the Carson Wentz experience. It is what it is. It was kind of rocky, but at the end of the day, he's going to put up QB1 numbers once again. So, again, I don't think you're really trading for him. You're probably not going to get anything in by trading him away, but he could certainly be a serviceable quarterback too for you in Superflex, maybe a streamer in a more shallow 1 QB format where you're just doing quarterback by committee or streaming the position, something like that. And if you are in a deeper league, don't ignore Vikings backup running back Xavier Scott. He's got some juice, man, former wide receiver, only had 2 carries, but did have 6 receptions on 8 targets for 43 yards and a nice kind of toe tapping touchdown. Just missed on another nice reception on the sideline. You can tell he definitely has some skills doing that, and they're not going to use Jordan Mason that much in the passing game. So at least for the next couple of weeks, while you still have no Jonesy, he could be serviceable for you, and he's probably out there literally in just about every league. Let's move on down to Tampa. We'll get my Eagles game out of the way. Up front, should just say that Bucky Irving managed to play very well in the game, but is going for an MRI as we record this. So I don't really know what's up with that. Obviously, in shallow leagues, make sure Rashad White is owned, and in deeper leagues, I really like Sean Tucker as a talent. So if he's out there, I would probably try to find a way to roster him, but we don't know anything more beyond that. So we won't dive too much deeper into it. Jamie G, anything to note of the return of Chris Godwin here? Got 10 targets, only turned them into 3 receptions for 26 yards. But I think given his absence and the injury, it was nice to see him step back into a fairly major role right away. So if you own him, I'm at least feeling pretty good about him right now.
Yeah, and I was surprised he drew 10 targets. I mean, let's just call it what it was. Coming off that injury, and this isn't the first injury, missing the time he has, trying to find a spot in that offense. And I understand Mike Evans was out, and that might be a big reason why here. I just don't know if it's sustainable, but it was awesome to see. Always liked Chris Godwin as a player. So it was nice to see him. But I mean, 10 targets is that's a full day.
I guess we should just understand that the Bucks offense is going to be very conducive to scoring fantasy points, especially in the passing game.
100%.
So I'm not going to run out to buy Godwin, but I think he is a player whose skill set should age fairly gracefully. So, I mean, if you get a team that decides to just tear it down to the studs and you can get him for, a third and kind of just a flyer prospect or something like that, it's certainly something I would consider. I think, especially when Evans comes back and McMillan is there are going to be some down weeks. It'll be a little bit more of everybody eats type of situation is my guess. But I think he could last pretty well for the next couple of years. Evans is getting closer to the end there. Baker looks like he's going to be solid for a minute, so I don't mind investing in that Bucks offense. How about investing in Saquon Barkley, dude? He found the end zone here on a little bit of trickery, but once again, 19 carries, only 43 yards. The Bucks are very tough to run against. Don't get me wrong here, but we're at 4 games now, and outside of maybe a couple of runs in the opening game, I just haven't seen much from Saquon, man.
The Eagles' offense is Mills. How do I put it? An enigma.
Atrocious?
Well, I won't go that far. It is bizarre. It is bizarre, and it's kind of like we're in a Batman movie and they're the Riddler, and I just can't figure out
bizarrely effective somehow.
It's so strange that
We're the Sex Panther of offenses. Half the time it works every time.
I mean, it's really bizarre, and they're finding ways to win games, but they're if you look at the numbers of this offense, it's alarming for the amount of talent that's there. Regarding Saquon, I think everyone, not everyone, but you and I and many people kind of out there wondered if he could, kind of even get close to where he was last year. It's so hard to do. And, just all that wear and tear and everything. And it looks like we're kind of seeing that he's probably not going to, but it's not necessarily for a lack of opportunity though. It's just, he's kind of, and if you look back last year, I think the difference was he was really good at busting the long one basically every game. He would find a 60, 70, 80 yarder every game, and that really kind of evened everything out. When he doesn't do that, it's like you're scratching your head a little bit, right?
Yeah, well, it's pretty obvious how you defend the Eagles. You just kind of like dare Jalen Hurts basically to throw in the middle of the field and pass the sticks past 10 yards, and he just is very, very hesitant to do it. It's kind of even the Indiana Jones thing too, right? It's not the years, it's the mileage. It's not that you're worried about Saquon, but almost every back coming off the kind of usage he had last year, including that deep playoff run, has struggled the following season. It's almost like the dudes who have it are basically like Derrick Henry and Adrian Peterson, at least in our age. You know what I mean? These dudes are
Right.
legitimately, you don't want to call them freaks of nature, but they're basically like the damn goddamn Wolverine. You know what I mean? These dudes are almost inhuman. I mean, remember Peterson coming back from an ACL after like 6 months or whatever the hell crazy it was,
And
and
still put
then
up 1,000 yards.
yeah,
Yeah,
like an
he's
MVP
nuts,
almost
dude.
season, like a wildly fantastic season. Like sometimes some people are just like on another level, and Saquon is one of those athletes, but it wouldn't surprise me if he just if he's not busting those big runs, it is going to be really tough for him. And here's a fun one for you, Jamie G. You know who completed more passes in the second half of the game than Jalen Hurts? You. Oh, wait, no, the same number. 0 for 8 in the second half. Jalen Hurts did not complete a pass in the second half, which led to A.J. Brown basically going on Twitter and asking for a trade, which is even crazier when you realize these dudes are like kind of best friends. Like, I think one is godfather to one's child. Someone stood up in someone's wedding. Like, these are pretty close dudes. So this is, it's getting a little wacky.
I don't know if that was really asking for a trade or not. It was what it was though was I don't want to bring attention to something, but you're actually bringing attention to it by tweeting the thing. So you kind of do. It was a weird thing by AJ Brown, and we've seen this in the past though with them. We've seen this in the past. They're finding a way to win, but not one single pass completed in the second half is really bizarre way to win. It's a strange Mills. I don't know. It's an enigma. I can't figure it out.
The Eagles' second half was literally a bunch of drives that were all 3 and out. One where they cashed in on a fumble on the short field, and then they took an intentional safety at the end. That's not good. Like there are legitimate concerns here, man. I have leagues where I own lots of AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, not even just because they were Eagles. I mean, I owned all these except one Brown shares before he was even traded to the Eagles. I've been a fan for a long time. Smith kind of fell right in that Waddle range in that rookie draft, and I took it. I've been happy ever since. I don't know that I can start those guys anymore. Like right now, it's really tough. They've each had one good week basically, and it was in the same week. Other than that, they haven't been startable in fantasy football and in dynasty. You have better options on your bench a lot of times, so it's killing me, Jamie G. I don't know what to do. I don't. It's hard to bench these guys, but you almost have to now.
Yeah, it's scary. I mean, if AJ Brown should not ever be on a bench ever, unless it's a bye week. Mills, you mentioned trade. I mean, is there really a universe where a team that's 4-0 would trade its number one wide receiver? I mean, that would just be,
Part
is
of the
that even
problem is they
possible?
gave him an extension recently. Like they're pretty good with the cap. This would be a really tough one. And the teams would probably be calling, the Giants would probably be calling. They're not going to go there. I mean, I guess maybe if the Patriots are willing to give up their first for this year and you feel like that could wind, you know what I mean? It would have to be a team where I guess if they thought they could get what winds up being, like a top 5 to 10 pick in the draft, those are so valuable. But put it this way, man. Theoretically, if you just swapped out AJ Brown for Quentin Johnston, would it really matter with the way the Eagles are running their offense right now? Here, big, strong dude who can run fast, run a straight line down the field.
No.
You know what I mean? For about like a tenth of the money. I'm not suggesting that specific thing, but I get where AJ Brown's coming from a little bit. We're not at all utilizing his skill set or Smith. I mean, dude, this is the highest paid offense in the NFL, and I believe the most expensive offense in the history of the NFL.
Mm.
Literally. Top 5 at their position across the board almost. Our defense is the cheapest in the NFL to let us afford that. But this should be unacceptable, dude.
Yeah, but you're gonna have to start paying some of those players on that defense. Like that's you can keep
Right,
drafting
chips are
them and
sailing. Yeah, good news, bad news. Lane Johnson retires. Like that'll free up a bunch of cap, but again, just like Kelsey retiring, it's not going to necessarily help.
yeah.
You move from one kind of problem to the other there. Jamie G, your Bills, not much of a problem dispatching the Saints. They hung around a little bit longer. I'll give the Saints credit. They played fairly well. They kind of really did their best overall. It was probably their best performance of the season, hands down. Shout out Kendra Miller, dude. I've been waiting for him to happen now. This is the third year of the patience, but he looked really good. I'm not sure why
Did.
they chose to feature him more. 11 carries, 65 yards, and a touchdown. It just looked good. Looked like the dude I really liked coming out of college. He was like a late first, early second round pick in most rookie drafts that year. As a Bills fan, I know you watched that game. Any impressions on Kendre Miller here? Like, you think he's maybe got a shot of kind of at least getting a crack at being the guy post Kamara, maybe?
Yeah, two things here. He was the better running back in that game, and the Bills kind of limited Kamara for the most part. Kendre Miller gave them absolute fits, and it was a lot of it was not any trickery. It was kind of like draws and up the middle type runs, and they had it fitted out, and he was very good. The part ran physical, ran hard. It made me wonder, and this is my second point, is it possible that they might be considering trading Kamara, and just going with Kendre Miller? I mean, Kamara is probably never going to see a contender in New Orleans. Could be good for multiple places. I don't know what his market is, but from a dynasty standpoint, if he landed in a different scenario, it potentially could increase the value there.
Yeah, so if Kendrick Miller is out there, there are a couple of shallow leagues. Like, he was at least kicking around in like one of my FFPC leagues before I picked him up recently. They got the kid Neal they drafted, I think, in the seventh round too. It's just a matter of someone will give him probably, I think, a third for Kamara is probably exceedingly fair. If someone's willing to do that, I think they'd almost have to consider it. I'm just not sure from their cap standpoint if they can actually do it. They're in so deep of cap hell that they have some issues. Like, I don't know how many voidable years Kamara has tacked onto his deal. I mean, remember, I think they just gave him like a new deal last year or something like that. Their front office has kind of been, a little bit kind of, let's just call it, overly optimistic in their view of their chances for, basically in the entire post-Drew Brees era. So, point being, I think Kendre Miller is a nice player to speculate on. And Kamara maybe will get a little short-term bump if he gets traded somewhere, but he has been an inefficient runner for a few years now. He pretty much relies on the passing game and the touchdowns. Nothing wrong. That's where your bread is buttered in fantasy football. But, for the most part, he is kind of what he is. We're just still waiting for the 3 or 4 touchdown game. That's still coming. It's Alvin Kamara.
It's coming.
He's saving it for
It's
Christmas.
coming.
Maybe it's coming for the playoffs this year. So we'll see what team it ends up happening for. And dude, shout out your guy, James Cook. I just remember the first 2 years in the league, he's splitting time with Devin Singletary. No one would trade him away, dude. And this is why. Everyone was waiting for this. It took a while, but it is happening now. And he has definitely kind of vaulted himself, right very, very close to that upper tier of dynasty running back. So if you own him and you held on for those couple of, leaner years waiting for it to happen, congratulations. It's happening.
And honestly, I think the best thing that happened was the contract, because now the Bills are just like using him. It really sucks if you had a little Ray Davis or if you had a little anybody, but he's getting the volume, Mills, and I think that's what's so impressive. And what he's doing with it has been incredible. I mean, I mean, he's scoring touchdowns. He's putting up over 100 yards. They haven't even really featured him a ton in the passing game yet. That's another element of his game that could come too. So definitely excited about James Cook. I mean, it's been incredible.
Yeah, he hasn't gotten there, but he's playing a little bit more when they have been in those third down situations. They brought in Ty Johnson quite a bit last year. And when he touches the ball, you just see him, he hits the hole so quick. He reminds me a lot of Dalvin Cook. Like, I think he's even got a little more juice than prime Dalvin Cook, to be perfectly honest. Maybe you could argue his brother had a little bit more physicality, but, it's just fun to watch him run, man. It's not like he isn't physical. He's not afraid to,
No, he's
go up
physical
against anybody. He'll lower that shoulder, man.
Yeah.
And you like that too. Like, he got paid and he's not, you know what I mean? He's putting it all out there now. Like, all right, he got the bag, you know what I mean? He's still going to, now he's going to run hard if he gets hurt.
He looks
He
better
got
than
paid.
he did before. And I think, with Delvin had that one step get it and the physicality. He has the physicality too, but he's more of a slasher a little bit. And it's it seems to work for him. So keep it going, James Cook. We'll let you cook all day, buddy.
Yeah, little reminds me a little bit of actually prime Alvin Kamara a little bit when he first kind of his younger years with the Saints there. A little bit like that. So, and that's very, very good for fantasy and dynasty owners. Dude, speaking of good for fantasy and dynasty owners, was this like the dream game for the Atlanta Falcons offense? Dude, everybody did it. Bijan Robinson, Algier, Drake London, Kyle Pitts all scored. All were fairly involved. I think everyone had like a minimum of 50 yards. I think Bijan had like 160 yards. I mean, this was it, right? I mean, this is when you drew it up in the lab and you're like, how could things work out, for this Falcons offense? This is what you want, right? And it came after they just got skunked 30-0 against the Panthers. I have no idea what to do with this.
This is so, when we started the season, I thought I had a better grip on Atlanta. You were already like, I don't know Atlanta. Dude, I'm officially in your camp on I have no idea how to attack Atlanta. It's bizarre. This should be happening very frequently. Will it happen again? I don't know. That's what's so crazy about Atlanta. I mean, it's great to see, but dude, I think they're going to be so hot and cold streaky that I just don't know.
I almost want there to be some like conspiracy that comes out like they all got food poisoning before the Panthers game or something. It's not like they've been great in every game. And here again, the defense wasn't nearly as good as they looked against the Vikings. But Michael Penix Jr. was like an entirely different quarterback.
Yeah, it was a massive bounce back game for him, and he looked the part. I mean, he some of the throws and stuff. I mean, you rewatch that Panthers game. It was like, who is this guy? He didn't even want to be there. It was just like not even. It was so bizarre. This game, he looked the part, 100%. And let's hope it can continue, man, because all those people you mentioned. A lot of people got a lot of ownership on all of them, so we really need it.
And they're all young. These are
Yeah.
all like players just entering the prime of their careers, basically. Like if it coalesces, this should be one of the best, offensive nucleuses and especially, dynasty nucleuses you could own. They just need the trigger man and probably a little bit of help on the offensive line. So definitely encouraging. But, again, after the two hot and cold weeks, I don't know what you can do other than just kind of hold on and see what the next week brings. And that's kind of the approach for the Commanders' backfield, right? Like Chris Rodriguez now has kind of come up in there. Him and Bill both had the 7 carries. You think it's maybe time to go and try to buy on the Krosky Merritt again? Or is it just going to kind of be a whole year of this and then maybe just wait until the offseason if you want to do so?
Yeah, I think it is. I'm not. If you want to get them, now's the time. But I just don't think you can. It's a hold. It's a buy and hold kind of thing for me, Mills.
Right, a buy and bench, basically.
Buy and bench. Yep.
Right. And it's super flex, or excuse me, in a best ball, then yeah, you have a little bit more flexibility in that, the computer will pick up the best times. So I think that's kind of the case. Like again, for the rest of this season, if you're just looking for a running back and Rodriguez is still out there on waivers, there's a chance they bring you roughly the same production and one will only cost you $5.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like he's going to have a lot of value going forward, but if you're just looking at it from this year, especially in a league with more limited roster spots, sometimes you have to be a little bit more judicious about how to use them. How about Luke McCaffrey, man? Found the end zone again. Only 2 receptions for 21 yards, only 3 targets, though. We've been waiting for him for a while. 3rd-round pick last year. He's got the name. He's got some talent. He's also been looking good in the return game. Terry McLaurin may or may not be back next week. We're not quite sure on Jaden Daniels. Is enough happening here for in a more shallow format to at least pick up Luke McCaffrey and tuck him on your bench if you got the space?
I think so because look, this is an offense you're gonna want a piece of with Daniels. Outside of Debo and Scary Terry, they're dying for another weapon here, another opportunity. Ertz, maybe it's him, but I think McCaffrey's got a real shot here to emerge, and they need some speed and some youth in this offense really bad. So, I think it's an offense you want to have a piece of, given the situation at quarterback. So for me, absolutely, I think Luke McCaffrey's a guy you can, and it shouldn't cost you too much right now either.
Yeah, he's again going to be out there in almost all shallow formats and even some deeper leagues. I've seen him out there. I also have minor interest for the same reasons in Jalen Lane and Ben Sinnott still. I think they'll get their chance eventually at some point here. And if you can get people hooked up with Jaden Daniels long term, I think that's a good way to go. And I should note if you are in Superflex at this point and you own Jaden Daniels and Marcus Mariota is still available, you need to carry him at this point. Mariota has proven to at least be serviceable. I mean, if you have other options that are better than Mariota, don't worry about it. But at this point, he's at least shown that he's going to get you into that 15 to 20 point range, which makes him a serviceable streamer as a QB2. Jamie G, we were a little bit worried about the Detroit Lions covering against the Browns. It turns out they were basically able to take care of business. I think the game more or less went as expected. I will say that Quinshon Judkins looks like an absolute stud. It was the week of breakouts for the rookie running backs, and we knew he was good, but this is the closest he'd come to a full workload. He was involved in the passing game. That's a pretty good front that the Detroit Lions have, so I'm extremely impressed with him. Also impressed with Isaiah Bond. This is a dude who went undrafted due to some off the field allegations. The Browns picked him up. He has been increasingly involved, wound up with 3 receptions for 58 yards on 6 targets. Very talented dude. Probably would have been his 2nd, 3rd, 4th round pick, somewhere in there. Probably call it a day 2 pick had he been in the draft. He's out there in a lot of leagues, and it looks like Cedric Tillman's going to be missing some time there. So there should be an opportunity for him to get some work going forward. And if you own Jamison Williams, do not panic. Goff just missed him. They just missed on a couple of hookups. And if anybody is panicking, definitely kind of he's definitely a dude I would be interested in buying. And if you own Jerry Jeudy or David Njoku on the Brown side of the ball, there's not much you can do. No one's going to buy. You can't cut them. Just maybe, they become more of a matchup based thing. And that's all you can really do at the moment. Jamie G, under over for the week Joe Flacco gets benched, week 6, before or after?
I'm gonna go after, but it's coming. It's coming real soon, but I'm gonna go after. And I mean like probably like immediately after. Like 7 or 8.
I feel like he could be halftime next week. I mean, Joe Flacco's just not helping them at all, right? That was the whole idea, that he could kind of at least, keep the offense on schedule, and it just doesn't seem to be happening. The problem is I don't know that Dylan Gabriel's any better. I mean, the irony of irony would be them like trading back for Jameis Winston or something like that. But at this point, I think the Browns at least owe it to just kind of see what they have in these other guys, cycle through them, see if you have anything. You have your pick and the Jaguars pick. Even if the Jaguars end up being decent, you can definitely move up by packaging the 2 picks there. So it is what it is a little bit, but hopefully it will not always be raining in Cleveland, but right now I can understand how it doesn't feel great, but Fannon's looking good. Judkins is looking good. So at least you have one of the better rookie classes so far this year overall. You got that going for you, which is nice. Over in the Carolina-New England game, shout out Stephon Diggs. He's got a bun in the oven with Cardi B. I guess that's good for you. I think so. I'm pretty sure that's good for you. And he also got over 100 yards. He's looked very good considering when he tore that ACL. 6 receptions for a $101, 7 targets. That's 4 more than Booty, who was the next on the team there with 3. And tentatively, I think he's a guy you're not going to really get value for, so you're probably better off just holding him. But at some point, if someone's willing to give you something for Diggs, I would move on probably. But at least right now, he's the guy for Drake May and Jamie G. I know you liked him as a rookie. I had my doubts on him coming into the league, and he has completely won me over. I am very impressed with Drake May this year. Like, he's managed to produce basically no matter what's happening around him, and I'm just really impressed by the kid.
I had my doubts. But after watching kind of the rookie year last year, I was impressed and just felt like, all right, this is going to be a good player in this league. He's getting really good coaching now. He's going to be in a system where he's going to have, opportunity, and they're going to utilize the skill sets. So I like Drake May. And yeah, he doesn't have a ton around him, but they're putting up points, man. And they've had a pretty easy schedule and everything else. So, but all that aside, he's delivering on what I think everyone wanted, and it was tough because when you looked at the situation, you were just like, will he really be able to? I mean, it's not the most stocked cabinet, in the kitchen or anything.
He's finding a way to make it work with Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper. You know what I mean? And Ramondre Stevenson. So I give him a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, me too. It's a good one to come. So
Yeah, and he adds enough with his legs that, in fantasy especially, he's very, very startable right now. We co-own a team. Like, he was kind of an afterthought, almost a throw-in on a deal we made last year, and all of a sudden he has risen to be probably our just locked-in starting quarterback until further notice. So it's nice when that happens. And it's not nice when players get hurt. Obviously, we'll wait a minute on Malik Neighbors here, but for the Chargers, dude, already without Rashawn Slater, when Joe Alt went down, literally in my brain, it was just like the meme, like, uh-oh. And it was very, very uh-oh. Like, pure sporty thieves here, right? Like, the Chargers are in trouble now. Like we said, they were better suited than most to survive the loss of 1 stud tackle. No team can survive losing 2 stud offensive tackles, right? It's almost impossible.
Losing 1, Mills, you can't underestimate that. He did such a great job moving from right to left tackle. It was incredibly impressive. Losing 2, it's a big deal, and it's gonna show up in the protection. And I know Justin Herbert's been running a little bit more and everything, but his escapability is not of a Lamar Jackson or anything like that. This is going to show up, and it's going to limit what they want to do in the passing game, and they're going to have to rely more on the running game, I think.
Oh, they have to, really. I mean, I just don't know what it is with the Chargers, man. Like, they need to just spend more money on their medical staff or something every year with this. It is getting ridiculous, and it's happened on the offensive line for so much. Like, dude, Justin Herbert's a tough dude, man. That man takes some goddamn hits and he really hangs in there. And shout out, Marion Hampton, a little bit of a slow start to the season. Again, it was rookie breakout week. He got it done both, on the ground, in the passing game, everything we hoped for. Hassan Haskins was active as the theoretical second running back. Didn't touch the ball. So if you drafted Hampton, you have to feel very, very good about that. I'm also still feeling very good about Aranda Gatz in the second. The rookie tight end didn't do as well this week as he did in his debut. He should be starting as long as Disley is out, and I think he is definitely going to overtake Disley as the starting tight end sooner than later. So keep an eye on that. Could hurt a little bit if he is asked to block more with the tackles hurt. At least it sounds like Joe Alt will be back at some point with the high ankle sprain, but it's probably going to be tough sledding for 4 to 8 weeks, somewhere in there. Jamie G, oops, he did it again. Quentin Johnston, 13 targets, 8 receptions, 98 yards, 1 touchdown. Only thing I really have to compare this to is DJ Chark, maybe, who was kind of a similar prospect, not drafted quite as high. I think Chark was a second round player, but he wound up missing a lot of parts of his rookie year with injuries, and then he really had a huge breakout in his second, and then kind of disappeared after that with injuries. I just don't know what to do with Quentin Johnson. If theoretically he's worth like a late first in a one quarterback super flex, or just in a one quarterback league, a late first, maybe probably an early second in a super flex. I don't know that he can keep this up. I mean, he was so inconsistent to start the career. He's got the concussion history, but man, oh man, he's a top 5 wide receiver right now. Like, what the hell do you do with this dude?
Yeah, he really is, and it's bizarre. I think you try to, for me, and this is personal opinion, personal preference here. I'm trying to get everything I can for him, and I'm selling. I'm selling
I
if I can.
probably am too. I just don't believe it. He can keep it up long term. Again, if you own Herbert, I get it. If you're in the best ball league, I get it. This just sucks. Like he was the dude I had on a lot of rosters. I really believed in him. And at the end of cutdowns, and especially in the FFPC formats, I cut him right before that monster week 1 performance. And I felt so bad because I gone like through 2 years trying to roster this dude. So maybe I can't quite see clearly on him. I just expect that he's one of these guys that, given the inconsistent start to his career and the concussion history, if he has an injury issue or something like that, his value is going to plummet precipitously. So I think you're right
Yeah.
here to kind of check out towards the top. But then if he is staying healthy and Keenan Allen's healthy, that's just killing our lad, right? That's killing our guy, Lad McConkey. He's a strong buy for me. But right now, with those other two guys healthy, it seems pretty obvious that it's just not going to really happen for McConkey.
No, and it's this is a weird one for me because I literally thought this offense was going to revolve. The whole passing game was just going to be McConkey, and we've seen now that he's I won't say an afterthought, but signing Keenan Allen absolutely was a death punch to him, and we'll see if that lasts more than this year. But Keenan Allen is kind of feels like if they're winning football games and he wants to play and he's willing to take whatever, that's a spot he's going to want to be. And that's just an absolute killer for McConkey.
I feel like it'll happen. Like he's too talented. He had too good of a connection with Herbert last year. I know a little bit of his production did get down to the fact that he was like Nino and G Money by the end of the season. They legitimately didn't have anybody. I think they actually even did have DJ Chark at one point. I mean, it was the cupboard was thin, despite the fact that Johnson did have, I think, 8 touchdowns. I'm buying. I trust the talent. He's young. He's hooked to Herbert long term, but there could be a couple of thin weeks ahead as we move forward here. So he's another guy like AJ Brown. I don't know that right now he is a kind of a guaranteed starter on the Giants side of the ball. Before we get to neighbors, I have to say very impressed with both Cam Scadaboo and Jackson Dart. If you sunk the first round picks into acquiring them, I think you have to feel really good right now. I'm probably just being happy I drafted them. I'm holding on. It looked good through 1 week. How are you feeling about the Scadaboo starting debut? And then, also, I guess the Dart starting debut. He did play a little bit before.
Yeah, I guess we'll probably have to mention the quarterback, right? I mean, let's start with our guy Cam Scadaboo, though. This was the right decision a month ago. They're finally getting there. The upside in the passing game, the ability to pound in the red zone. I really like what we were seeing out of Scadaboo. And let's go to Dart. It was about what I thought it would be. And when you look at it, it wasn't too big for him. But what I love about it was some of the design run, and we saw the big scramble for the touchdown. If there's rushing upside here with Dart, which we think there will be, this could be a really, really good thing. Even being in the situation he's in.
Yeah, if you own him, again, I think he's a strong hold. I would certainly be interested in acquiring him for kind of a late first and a late second or something like that, or something in that range. But I think right now, if he does enough, what do you think? Does this, before we move into the actual nuts and bolts of the Neighbors thing, do you think the combination of Dart looking good and the loss of Neighbors is enough to buy another year for Daboll and company?
Normally, I would say no, but the owner, John Mara, just came out with a statement that he's been diagnosed with cancer. I'm going to say yes, but I don't think it should be.
A lot of moving parts here, really, is what
There
you're saying.
really
But
is.
the loss of Neighbors, again, is going to make it hard to get the proper judgment, right? Like, oh, how do they actually, mesh together? And, oh, well, then,
Well, yeah,
this
that
guy.
was that was a they spent a lot of capital on Neighbors, right? I mean, that was a high number one pick, first round pick, high. What was it, 4 or 5?
Four, I
They
think. I
got him
think four.
4. So I mean, you're talking about a top 5 pick here. We know the talent's there. The offense needs to go through him. You kind of saw it for with your rookie quarterback for a half of football. So it's really tough. I don't think it should be enough. And I like Brian Dable. You know, I'm a Dable guy. I like him a lot. I don't think it should be, but I think given all the things going on with the Giants, it might be.
Yeah, I think that's kind of exactly how I feel. As far as when you go a little bit downstream from the Neighbors injury, do you think there's kind of one guy who benefits? Is it, Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton, Theo Johnson, Scadaboo, or is it just kind of going to be like everybody just gets a few more targets? I'm leaning the latter, but you never know. I mean, someone could step forward, I guess.
Yeah, somebody could emerge here. I don't know who it is, but I think somebody probably does. But the one thing that I'll tell you, I don't see Dart trying to force it. Now, let's get 2 or 3 games worth of tape and see what happens when defenses start, really game planning. But it's my guess is it's going to be a little bit of whoever's open. I mean, how long can Dable kind of game it up, the perfect script for him? I don't know. Not having Neighbors makes this offense easier to defend, and that's just a reality. And I don't know who's the other player. I mean, you want it to be Wandale, but I don't know that you're going to see anything different than what we've seen from him so far, right? Which is kind of that boom or bust potential. I don't know. I don't know.
In a vacuum, I guess, like, there went Dart's safety blanket. So I would maybe lean just towards the tight end and running back just because those are going to be the more available options in the short to intermediate area. So maybe ultimately that's the most primary result is more targets and receptions for Theo Johnson and Scadaboo or maybe Tracy when he returns. I don't know if that's, going to mean they're more efficient with it, but in a PPR league, I guess that gives them a little bit of a boost, maybe.
Yeah, and you could see that, and him and Scadaboo coming in the league together, like you could see that being a thing where if he's going to check it down, he's going to check it down to Scadaboo, which is probably a good thing for the Giants in real life, and certainly would be a great thing from a dynasty perspective for those 2 players as well.
All right, so let's get into the nuts and bolts of the Malik Neighbors thing. Obviously, every league is going to be different. The status of the team who owns Neighbors, be it you or somebody else, will impact whether or not they would be willing to entertain a deal. The closer a team is to contending, the older they are. If they own Neighbors, my guess is the more willing they would be to make a deal. If Neighbors is already on a rebuilding team, there's almost no chance that you're going to pry them away unless you're offering something, very, very comparable. And the one thing I would say, JBG, if you're going to buy Neighbors right now, there has to be an injury discount built into this, right? Because you're not getting production for the rest of the season. So you cannot pay the same price for Malik Neighbors you would have paid a week ago, right?
There's no telling if he's going to, dude, knees like this. Now with modern technology, again, he could be back in 8 months and you'd never know it would happen. But there's also a chance that he's never quite the same, quite as explosive, quite so. There's certainly a lot of risk here, man. And so that doesn't mean you're paying the iron price, which is what it was 2 days ago.
Right. When you could have made the argument, like, I think we even kind of like explored the idea of him being the number one. Would you rather him because he's still a little bit not younger than Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase? So we're even like putting him in that kind of rare air. I'll just throw a few offers at you. I went through some leagues. These are actual offers that I thought might at least be conceivable between teams, that might be interested in buying Neighbors and teams that own Neighbors. Some of these are mine, some are not, but they're all from rosters in my leagues. JBG, would you rather have Kenneth Walker III and Zay Flowers or Blake Neighbors?
Oh, Neighbors.
It's pretty close. I think this one was, depending on your team needs, was
It's
maybe a little bit
close.
close before, but again, Neighbors only 22 years old. If he does return healthy at the start of next year, yeah, I think this is a big win. I'm very worried about Kenneth Walker going forward. So yes, I think I would also be on the Neighbors side. All right, how about George Pickens and Travis Hunter or Neighbors?
This one's really tough. On the surface, I want to go Pickens and Hunter, but if they're going to insist on playing Hunter on defense, and you just don't know, like again, we talked about this. There's so much risk with Hunter. What if they get thin at corner and he just has to play there full time? Because of all those things, and I know Pickens coming off the monster on Monday night and everything. Because of all those things, I think I'm still probably going Neighbors here.
I think I'm also with you on Team Neighbors, and here's what I know is from one of my teams. Would you rather have Jonathan Taylor and Chris Godwin or Neighbors?
Oh man. I even with the injury and I love me some JT money more than most, but even with the injury, man, I gotta go Neighbors here. It's just the age thing.
Yeah, and honestly, because Godwin is a lot like, even if he's solid to finish out his career, that could be more like, he's the wide receiver 28-ish or something like that. So it really just comes down to Godwin sustaining for a long period of time. So I definitely take the 22-year-old wide receiver despite the injury. How about let's get a little younger? Travis Etienne and Ricky Parasol or neighbors?
You don't know if ETN is just gonna be able to continue. You like what you see from Pearsall, but I don't know that it's ever going to have the up that Neighbors does. I'm probably still going Neighbors here, Mills, but I'm close to. I could maybe be convinced on the other side.
Right. The idea is these are supposed to be fairly close. You know what I mean? If it was obvious, you don't need us to talk about it. I think I'm also team neighbors on that one. But again, ETN and Parasol are still 25, 26, just young enough that you could make the argument for even kind of like a rebuilding team, because you don't ever want to be, unless you're in some crazy league where you're legitimately like multiple years away from rebuilding. But outside of that, yeah. Jamie G, the Eagles fan in me, makes me want to kind of wish this thing's possible, but I don't know if it is. AJ Brown and Malik Neighbors.
This is tough. I'm going to buy the youth though and go Neighbors.
Yeah, that's what I figured. How about the two stars, man? DK Metcalf and Pickens or Neighbors?
Going Neighbors. I'm going Neighbors. We talked about Metcalf. I just don't know how much. I don't, it's so inconsistent. And when it drops off, it's going to drop off quick. So to me, that's basically Pickens for Neighbors. I think I'm still going Neighbors with the age.
And Pickens is such a wild card because you don't know where he's going to be going forward. You know what I mean? He has that really big personality. If he gets the right spot, he could be awesome. He could be a top five wide receiver. If he lands in the wrong spot or it doesn't go right, like he's borderline unstartable. So I think there's just too many different ways that one could go. Here's a really interesting one: Emeka Egbuka or Neighbors?
Now that's interesting. Honestly, with the injury, I think I would be inclined to. This is tough. I think I could go. I think I could sell myself on Ibuka here. Look, he's going to be tied. You could argue he's in a better situation than Neighbors. He is. Now, Jackson Dart may be what we think he has the potential to be, but we know what Baker Mayfield is. He does, he is sharing the workload a little bit, but some of those guys are getting long in the tooth. I think I'm going Ibuka here with no injury history, primed to be the alpha dog number one as soon as Mike Evans and Godwin. This is probably Godwin's last season there. Evans, maybe he's got one or two more, but he's going to slow down. I think I'm going Ibuka here, man.
It's interesting, right? It really, really
Very
is.
much so.
Because you can see it. This is the first one. If you're the neighbor's owner, you're like, boy, what I mean, he's like they're roughly the same age, but still, like, all right. Even if neighbors is better for the rest of their career, if they play a similar number of years, you're still basically getting an extra season from Igbuka here, right? Because neighbors is done for this season. So theoretically, again, anyone could get hurt, but if he plays the rest of the season, that's huge. That's just neighbors can't give you anything there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's absolutely massive. You're getting, you're almost getting a twofer here with in terms of the season. So
Similar kind of thing, but a little bit older. Would you rather have a Amon Ross St. Brown or neighbors?
It's so hard to get away from Amon Ross St. Brown's numbers, and it's been so consistent. It's hard to think it's going to keep, but every time I'm like, that's going to end, he does it again. But I think I'm going to go, and he's in such a great system, and he's so perfect for that offense. I think I'm going to stay with the age and purely the age here and go neighbors.
if I'm a this is definitely one where it would, if you were somehow not a contender with Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think I would take Neighbors. But if you are a contender, Amon-Ra St. Brown, like he was, he had some athletic questions coming into the league. I think his game will age fantastically. So I think
That's
I'm willing
true.
to lean there in that case. But again, very, very close. How about Marvin Harrison Jr. or Neighbors?
You want to go Harrison Jr. here. He's got everything, but in no injury, right? But Neighbors has produced, given horrible situations, Harrison Jr. has not. Is it coming for Harrison Jr.? It feels like it probably is, but I think I'm leaning Neighbors still.
I think I am also team Neighbors there. And this one, I think I know the answer, but Quentin Johnston in a first, let's call it in a one quarterback league. Quentin Johnston and a first or Neighbors.
I love that you threw the first in there just to make it something to think about, but I still got to go Neighbors here.
Right, that would be a little thin, but I could definitely see that. Like, I'm almost positive that offer will be made in a league that
Oh
I'm
yeah,
in. I
yes,
just
that's coming.
that
Yeah.
makes a lot of like if it was Johnston in again one quarterback, like Johnston in the 104, would that be enough?
I still don't know that it would be.
I don't think so either. Okay, I'm just gauging it. How about either Barkley or Derrick Henry in a second for Neighbors, one quarterback?
I don't think so. And
Yeah, that's
I don't think I can get there. I think I still got to go Neighbors. There's the age, there's all the things. I got to go Neighbors here.
I'm with you there. And in a super flex league, let's say you picked up Daniel Jones like your fourth quarterback, you don't need him. Would you trade Daniel Jones a first and a second for Neighbors?
Now we're starting to really think. I still am probably going to go Neighbors, but I love the offer.
Yeah, I think I would take Neighbors too. I just don't trust it. And again, it all depends on those picks. If it winds up being an early first and an early second, and Jones is good, like you can like if he's at least Darnold good, or you can get multiple years out of him, you're probably at least in the universe there. But if Jones washes out and those are late picks, you got absolutely screwed. So there's a high degree of variance on that one. If it was like a kind of a contender who owned Neighbors, and you were a team like, all right, I'm going to rebuild. Would you rather have Devontae Adams, Javonte Williams, and a first or Neighbors?
Again, it's enough to make you think, but we kind of got age with Devonte Adams, and we have no idea how productive he can be for how long. Javonte Williams, we're on kind of this pillow 1 year prove it deal, and while it's been okay in Dallas, I don't know that it's going to materialize someplace else. The first is nice, but I think I've got to go Neighbors here. I just kind of talked myself through it.
Yeah, this one I think is pretty easily Neighbors for me. And this was an interesting one here. You got Neighbors, you're contending, and say you have like maybe a surplus of depth at running back or something. Which side would you rather have, Trey Benson in Neighbors or Puka Nakua?
Ooh, yeah, that's something.
Say Trey Benson's your running back four right now. You just lost Neighbors. Yes, Puka is older, but I mean, he looks like he could have an absolute monster. And you feel like, you could probably, if he has that monster, he might even be worth somehow more in the offseason. Like he might be worth still almost as much as Neighbors if he like has the season he's pacing to have, right?
Yeah, I think out of all of them, I can probably talk myself into this.
Well, that's extra interesting because on one of our co-owned teams, we do own both Neighbors and Trey Benson. So we'll have to see if we're willing to put our proverbial money where our mouth is on that one.
Doing it's different than saying you would maybe do it. So
Yeah. You sound like my prom date. All right, let's move on. But I think again, Neighbors is such a huge dynasty asset that I think it's worth spending the time on it there. This is
dude,
the kind of player that like you build your entire team around. You know what I mean? He is a foundational blue chip player, and when they get hurt, it's a big deal. So if you don't own Neighbors and you're not interested in trading for him, we apologize. But it's kind of the fascinating thing because if you can ever acquire a player like that at a deep discount, it'll be huge for you going forward. JBG, not much huge in that Tennessee and Houston game, other than shout out Woody Marks. Really came through here, 17 carries, 69 yards, one touchdown, four receptions for 50 yards, and another touchdown on five targets. I feel pretty confident that he can work his way into at least being, the running back one for the Texans the rest of the year. I don't really think that you can bank on Joe Mixon coming back at this point. So I don't know that he's going to be like, like Bucky Irving, where he takes that big of a value jump. But I think he can at least be like, Tyrone Tracy was pretty good for people last year and built up a lot of dynasty value. Hopefully you checked out a little bit before Scatterboo happened. But I think he could at least be in line for that kind of value boost, right?
Absolutely could, and they're desperate for it. I mean, it was like, there's a Chubb, there's a Woody. All jokes aside here, I definitely think you can get. I don't know that you can expect the type of production you saw, say, at the beginning of last year, but I do think that there'll be value there.
Yeah, and again, at this point, no one even knows what the deal is with Joe Mixon, so do not be counting on anything from him going forward. Just keep an eye on Tajay Spears, should be activated pretty soon to return from IR. I'm sure the Titans at some point are going to want to see really what they have in him. So if you own Tony Pollard, now is the time to check out. If you can vulture buy on Spears, I'm probably doing so. And nice to see the touchdown for Jaden Higgins for the Texans, but unfortunately it was his only target. But still a player I'm very, very high on. Jamie G, you were very high on the Rams going into last week. They proved you correct. They were victorious. What did you think of Daniel Jones's performance in this one? It was mixed, certainly his worst of the year, but I was almost kind of encouraged that it wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be. Is that damning with faint praise? How did you feel about his performance against the Rams?
It was respectable, and it wasn't super alarming in terms of the terrible mistake, the terrible decision making. The decision making wasn't that bad at all. And honestly, if you don't have an AD Mitchell like ridiculous play, they maybe win that game. So I thought even with him not having his best game ever, he still wasn't making terrible decisions, and it was okay.
He had a chance to win. So if you own
He
him,
did.
I think the chances that he doesn't turn back into a pumpkin, like what would you call it, like the Darnold factor or whatever, is like up at least like 10% here. Because he kind of went, this was his first really tough road matchup, and he survived. You know what I mean? And he didn't absolutely kill you if you started him on your fantasy team. So you got to start somewhere. You mentioned AD Mitchell. Nice to see. He got an increased role here. He was the guy we both liked as a rookie. Was drafted in the second round by the Colts. Really did nothing his rookie year. But now with Alec Pierce out, he kind of got his chance. Dude, he had a nice return. He had that great, he looked like he was going to have one of the 75-yard touchdown.
Oh,
And
it
it's
was
ironic.
incredible.
The exact same thing Jonathan Taylor did last year in almost the exact same week. We're running into the end zone. Just lets it go early. Like, dude, I don't even know what else to say. That's like a five duder right there.
It's a five duder, and it's so unfortunate. And he knows. I mean, he was, I don't know who was more upset on the sideline, him or Derrick Henry after the third fumble in that game the other night against Detroit. But it was bad, and it's that would have been a breakout play, and honestly, put you on the map in fantasy dynasty type play. It's unfortunate.
I'm still kind of buying. I'm not going to throw it away again. I think it was just a one-time mistake. He had a lot of good reviews through training camp. The main problem was just too many mouths to feed. But if Alec Pierce remains out, especially, I really like him, especially in a deeper league. We both talked about last week. Kyron Williams seems to be a strong sell. He's fine, but there's no appreciable difference when Blake Corum comes in. I don't. Unless they get a back who's special, I think the McVay offense is always going to make, pretty much any decent back look above average. So I still think a pretty strong sell here. I'm kind of actually interested if you were a contender in a super flex league, say you've just been struggling with your second quarterback, or maybe you had Burrow, something like that. So you're kind of behind the eight ball a little bit. JBG, you have to have at least a little bit of Matthew Stafford interest in Matthew Stafford, right? Even if you think this might be the last year, I'd still probably be willing to give up what I think would be like kind of like a mid to late second round pick and a sweetener for him if I'm trying to make a push and I don't have another option as my second quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look at the weapons he's got. He's in the right offensive system, and we know he's gonna. I mean, even with their inability to protect him properly, dude, he's still putting it up, man. And if he wasn't so tough and always has been his entire career, I might worry a little bit more. But he's been so durable, especially considering all the hits he takes.
Yeah, again, he's probably a year-to-year proposition at this point, and I would be shocked if he came back and played for another team. So if he is kind of hooked up here long-term with Puka, and they're probably committed to Adams next year as well, seems to be as good a spot as any. So If you're looking for somebody there, and if you've got Stafford, I would, if you're using him every week, I would continue to ride him instead of checking out for that kind of late second and a sweetener. And dude, Josh Downs, I know we both like him as a player. It's just not really happening for him. 4 receptions, 24 yards on 5 targets. Park him on your bench. I am not cutting him except in very shallow formats, but for the most part, just not much you can do with him right now. Moving on to the Jacksonville San Francisco game, I was kind of surprised they almost switched roles here. Jacksonville won that game exactly the way I thought the 49ers would. That their opponent just turned the ball over, made some dumb mistakes, and let them hang around long enough to do it. That's kind of damning the Jacksonville with faint praise. But outside of Travis Etienne, I really wasn't that impressed with anything on their offensive side of the ball. The defense actually looked pretty good. And then you look at the 49ers offense, Purdy aggravated his toe injury. Parasol aggravated his knee injury. It feels like their entire operation is being held up with like paper clips, duct tape, and rubber bands right now. I don't even know what to do with any of these teams other than if I owned a bunch of shares of Travis Etienne, and I do, I'm probably trying to move on like, maybe 25 to 50% of them. And I'm still willing to buy low on Brian Thomas and sell Travis Hunter. Any takeaways from this one?
We know that Kittle's coming back, and that's what you got to hope for. If you've got any Purdy in your arsenal, you got to hope for that because this San Francisco offense, it's hard to believe San Francisco is 3-1, isn't it? It really is.
I thought they would have had a chance to go 4-0 here, and I was just trying to get on the train before it derails because of all the injuries, because I could kind of see this coming. I was just surprised it happened like a week sooner than I was thinking, more or less. I really thought they'd at least be able to get by Jacksonville at home, and then I would worry about it after that. They're Thursday night against the Rams, I think. So they got the short week as well ahead of them.
Yep.
Here's an offer I actually got. Tell me how off you think this was. Dude wanted to trade me Christian McCaffrey, and from me, he wanted Cam Scadaboo. What would I expect to be an early to mid first, and what I would expect to be like a mid to late first. So he's about a year and a half late with that offer, right?
Yeah. Yeah, a good 18 to 20 months, man. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's the equivalent of 3 to 5 picks, depending on where they fall. And that's if you want to trade Christian McCaffrey at this point, I get it. Nobody is going to be willing to give you what you want. You're going to get like a late first and a sweetener. So make a decision. Yeah. You're at the shit or get off the pot point. You can cash out for that or just ride it to the end. And McCaffrey is a guy who theoretically, if he stays healthy, should age very, very well. His skill in the passing game, he should be able to hang around in the league till he's 35. But, we'll just see if he can stay healthy that long. And speaking of staying healthy, Jamie G, any impressions on the Lamar Jackson injury? They called it a hamstring. He eventually got pulled from that Ravens-Chiefs game. To me, it looked like it was a tweak, and they were kind of out of it, so we pulled him out. I know Harbaugh kind of hemmed about, like, we would have kept him in there regardless of the score if he was able to go. But that's the way I anticipated. If you're in a super flex league, I guess you need to pick up Cooper Rush. But other than that, are you worried about Jackson missing time?
Not really, but I will say this. I worry about his game without the ability to have, pain free in the hamstring. If this, hamstring for that type of quarterback, I think is probably a bigger deal than most. But it didn't look to be anything egregious. He wasn't super upset or looking worried on the sidelines. So I don't know. It remains to be seen here. But as of this moment, as we're recording this, no, I'm not.
I'm not worried about that, but I am worried about the fact that the Baltimore defense has basically been shredded. I think this definitely hurts Derrick Henry. Maybe you could make the argument that it helps out Jackson, maybe Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, some of these passing game guys, if the Ravens are going to be forced to be in these shootouts. I know generally, unless you're in an IDP league, we don't care about defense this much, but I think the injuries on this Baltimore defense are something that we have to acknowledge in terms of fantasy football, because I know the Ravens have a reputation as a defense, but there's a very good chance you might want to be starting everybody against the Ravens going forward, and that's just wild to say.
It shouldn't be that way. I mean, this was a defense that was very good at the end of last season. When they made the shift to put Kyle Hamilton at safety, all of a sudden, like the light bulb went on. This defense got very good, very aggressive. They're banged up, and the injuries, and this is what we talk about all the time. These things matter, okay? And when you look at some of the people they lost in this game, and we're talking about out for the year, Marlon Humphrey. These are impact players on the defense, so it's hard to see them really kind of like changing that given all these injuries.
They lost players at every level. On their defensive line, in the middle, at the linebacker core, at the corner position, at the safety. They're just incredibly banged up. So it's going to be tough if Jackson's back out there. You like the idea it could turn more games into shootouts, but I think for years we've been conditioned to like, oh, try to avoid starting your players against the Ravens. So maybe just dissuade yourself of that notion for the remainder of the season. I also was impressed by Xavier Worthy here after that shoulder, man, him being a kind of slight dude, I really didn't think he was going to do much. Came out, had 2 carries for 38 yards, 5 receptions for 83 yards on 8 targets. He just looked way better than I was expecting. I'm not willing to just buy in and be like, oh, he's through this shoulder thing. But if he can put together another good performance next week, I think I can at least buy that he might be good to go for the rest of the season, which I didn't think was possible a couple of weeks ago. So I think his arrow is definitely pointed up a little bit. Any thoughts on Worthy or the rest of the Chiefs offense here? It's obviously the best game for them in a minute.
Yeah, I thought definitely the arrows pointing up. I thought he looked the part. They needed it so bad. And I was encouraged that it didn't totally do away with the Tyquan Thornton buzz that we had going. Obviously, he's going to take a little hit here. And keep in mind, another week or two goes by, and all of a sudden, Rashee Rice is back.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that offense can get it going a little bit. I don't know if that was. I don't know. I don't even want to ask you because you'll be a little column A, a little column B. Is it more that the Chiefs' offense took a step forward, or the Ravens' offense is that bad? But I think in this case, the JVG special is probably correct in that it was kind of a case of both. And shout out Brashard Smith, just another dude I like to keep an eye on. The former wide receiver moved to running back, 7th round pick, continues to contribute on returns, and he had 4 carries for 9 yards, 3 receptions for 27 yards on 4 targets. His role seems to be steadily growing. Definitely a guy, if he is out there on the wire in shallower leagues, you want to pick up. One guy I think you probably want to put down, if possible, is DeAndre Swift. I don't know that he's washed or anything, but he was a poor fit for this offense when when Ben Johnson was running it in Detroit. He's still a poor fit for it in Chicago. Managed to find the end zone here, caught 4 passes. I just don't think it's going to happen for him, right? I mean, actually, I feel very confident that the starting running back for the Chicago Bears in 2026 is not currently on the roster.
Yeah, I think so too. We saw what Ben Johnson did with running backs, how important they were to his offense when he was in Detroit. You got to believe that whoever's like the next guy, that's the one to get excited about because I think that you're going to see the offense kind of start to run through them, and they need it as a team, and it will be great from a fantasy standpoint.
Yeah, if Kyle Monangai or Roshan Johnson are available in your league, I'm willing to pick them up for minimal fab, tuck them on the bench if I have a spot. Outside of that, I just don't have a lot of high hopes for the Bears running game this season. Obviously, we had high hopes for Ashton Genty. He came through with the big breakout game here, kind of as to be expected, as is Geno Smith throwing some picks, right? I mean, we knew he was going to have to kind of take some chances here. We thought Trey Tucker would probably fall back down to earth. I think we're hoping for more from both, obviously Brock Bowers and even Jacoby Myers, and that hasn't been happening. But the Raiders kind of are what they are, right? If you own any of these guys, you kind of just have to hold on and trust in Pete Carroll to get it turned around at some point, right?
Yeah, that's all you can do. I mean, 117 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions is really bad. And this is the third game in a row here that was really bad for Geno Smith. So I don't know that you're going to see, huge swings. I think this is kind of who he is, and given what they have going right now, but. It remains to be seen, and there's really nothing you can do. There's no value in if only you could trade Max Crosby, right? But you can't. So
Yeah, at least Geno's willing to put it up from a fantasy standpoint.
yeah,
Unless it's a league that
yeah,
crazily penalizes for turnovers or something. You'd rather have him out there throwing those YOLO balls at least. You know what I mean? He's got some guys trying to get him involved. So yeah, it's probably not great for the Raiders long term in terms of their NFL prospects. But from a fantasy dynasty standpoint, I don't really mind that Geno is turning it over a little bit more. And then, dude, we're recording this on Monday night, so we can't speak as to the Monday night games. But that Sunday night football game, I don't even know what to think about that, man, because I had a lot of respect for that Packers defense. I just didn't think Dak could get it done without CeeDee Lamb. But Dak Prescott was extremely impressive in that game, man. I mean, I don't know that Jalen Tolbert or Kevontae Turpin are really that good. I want to love Pickens and Javonte Williams, But Dak Prescott was goddamn dealing in that game, dude. And the Dallas offensive line did a great job.
Yeah, I mean, Mills, you're starting to worry me that maybe you got a Dak Prescott jersey in your closet, but I'll tell you this, he was outstanding in the game. They had a really good game plan, and I don't know if it's more telling about maybe the Packers defense isn't what we thought they were based on the first two games of the season. Um, they've been really good to start the season, but the Cowboys moved the football very effectively, and it was a full-blown shootout here. We knew the Packers were going to put up the points. I don't think that surprised us at all. The Cowboys making this, because we talk about it two to tango all the time. The Cowboys doing it was pretty wild.
And I think that makes Dak Prescott an excellent, kind of low value buy. Like, I think some people might want to check out. Dude, he's got a good line. He's got a couple of weapons. That defense is going to give up a lot of points. This
Yeah,
really shapes up to be a huge year for Dak. Even if it's not, that great of an NFL season, on paper, garbage time points count as well.
they
So
count
I
just as
don't
good.
undervalue Dak Prescott. What do we do with George Pickens, man? 8 grabs, buck 34, 2 touchdowns. I think this is a game we've all been waiting for. As a person who owns like a lot of shares, like call it like 10-ish shares, I'm probably willing to move on from like 3 to 5 of them just to diversify my holdings a bit because I think he is a very volatile asset, given his kind of just general temperament and the fact that we don't know where he's going to be playing long term. Do you think this is the time to try to move on, or do you think this is just a bigger sign of things to come?
I think it's the time to move on. And I just don't know that you're going to get the consistency out of him. I think it's the streakiness. He's going to have these huge splashes. Yeah, certainly a best ball if you got him in there, but I think you get out while there's a huge window where people are going to look at that and say, "Man, and no CD Lamb for a little bit." Yeah, I'm all in. I really do.
I would definitely say, if you are willing to either you have the depth to survive it or you're not expecting to contend this year, go to the Malik Neighbors owner in your league and see what you would have to add to George Pickens to get to Neighbors possibly. This is probably going to be the biggest game of the year for him. So again, it was in a tough matchup. It's hard not to be excited about that game. So you kind of want to use it as a selling point. And I have to say, Javonte Williams continues to impresses me. Maybe I'm just getting pulled back in Michael Corleone style, but against what I consider to be a pretty tough defense, he had 20 carries for 85 yards and a touchdown, 3 receptions for 15 yards. He has been just the metronome of consistent production for fantasy owners. I don't know that he can keep it up long term, but I feel like he is going to probably wind up at the end of the season if he plays 16 games. He's or 17 games, I guess. Now he's probably going to be a top 12 running back.
We didn't think it going in, but given what has happened and transpired, and look, there's an ability with Schottenheimer here. There's a want and a desire and a focus on running the football, and it's happening. And I mean, it just is what it is here. He's getting the volume, dude. He's just getting the volume.
And in the passing game, which was the part I
Yeah.
wasn't sure about. Even in week one, they try to work Sanders in more. If you own Jaden Blue, good luck. I don't even know when he's going to be active at this point. So this is going to be the Javonte Williams show going forward until proven otherwise. So if someone is trying, if you can buy him kind of low key, that's fine. But I wouldn't sell him unless you're really getting proper value here. Again, no idea what happens next year. We saw kind of Rico Dodal have a similar season for the Cowboys last year and then wind up signing with the Panthers as a backup. There's no guarantee that this is going to be all sunshine and rainbows for Javonte Williams in 2026. But comparatively from where he was going into this season, his value is doubled, tripled, maybe even quadrupled at this point. And I think this is fairly real. I think they're going to keep working him. The line is good enough. He's got the role he needs, decent touchdown equity. So if you bought low on Javonte Williams, congratulations.
Yeah, man. Well, I think that's around 9 or 99 guys or something. I think that does it for week 4 here. Anything else, Mills, before we get out of here?
We got 99 guys, but Josh Allen ain't one because he's too expensive. You can't afford him.
Very true. Thank you guys for being one of our 9 guys. We appreciate you checking out another episode of 9 Guys. Let us know all the crazy trades. If you own neighbors, we are so very sorry. Hopefully this helped. If you don't, maybe now you got an idea of what to do if you're trying to target them. We appreciate you guys. If you haven't done so, like and subscribe. That way you see this. We're going to post one of these each and every week throughout the season as this crazy football season unwinds. Mills will let you know where you can find all of our details. Drop a comment below or get at us on social media.
Even in this crazy mixed up world, this doggy dog world, you can set your clock by Nine Guys Dynasty Football. We will be here every week. Thanks again for checking out our show. You can find our content wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Find us on social media at Seize the Gap FF and on the web at seizethegapff.com. Very simple and easy to remember, just like the flaps, FLAPS. Follow, like, and please subscribe if you had fun. Please touch the thumb. I'm Magna Mills, he's Jamie G, and we'll see you next week on Nine Guys Dynasty.
Watch the world, it's a